ahead. All right, now that I am completely embarrassed by the technology, oh my gosh, that's the worst part of teaching, let me just tell you. All right, ancient grains for the, what, 100th time? We're going to discuss ancient grains tonight. Several years ago, Young Living started talking about a product called einkorn flour. And I was like, well, I don't really have any gluten sensitivity, so I just kind of just tuned it out, didn't really pay any attention. And as I was looking up the information for tonight's class, I learned some crazy stuff. So you guys can see there, Moses wheat versus wheat from now. There's a huge difference between the way those two look. All right, so ancient grains have not been cross-pollinated or genetically modified in any way. The modern wheat we know today has been specifically engineered to have the shorter stalks that create less waste and fuller heads of grain to produce a greater yield. Okay, now on the surface, that sounds like an okay thing, right? However, ancient grain has 14 chromosomes. Modern grain has 42 chromosomes. That's how, I know, right? That's how genetically modified those, I mean, the visual is like mind-blowing, but when you like hear that number, that's crazy. So these, I'm gonna have everybody mute themselves, please. Thank you. The extra chromosomes create new proteins that humans are unable to assimilate. Ever ask yourself how come so many people have problems with gluten these days? These proteins are foreign to the human body and are suggested to be the cause of many gluten sensitivities that are experienced today. And in your document, if you want to do some further research on that, you'll have a PubMed article to go to. So einkorn grain is the oldest form of cultivated wheat. Because einkorn is not hybridized, the original DNA structure remains intact and actually helps the body digest gluten properly, what our bodies are meant to do if we don't put the foreign things in it. And then this graph is also fascinating. This is the percent of gluten content in flour. And so the einkorn products, we'll talk about some of Young Living's products. That's what the Gary True Grit mix is the Young Living products. I thought this was really fascinating. So einkorn has a very low gluten level comparatively to a lot of the other modern flours. Now, if you are celiac, that does not necessarily mean that you can consume the einkorn flour. So you need to do your own research. I'm not a doctor, and I'm not telling you that einkorn is going to wave a magic wand and make you be able to consume all gluten. But as we are walking along this health and wellness journey, I think we need to understand how processed so much of today's flours are, and that it could be hard on all of our bodies. I mean, that's why we use essential oils. They help our bodies work like they were meant to work. It's not a foreign substance. We talk about toxins all the time. So I think this goes right along with those conversations that we are always having about wellness. So why is einkorn superior to modern wheat? We talked about it being easier to digest, and the nutrient content is actually better for the ancient grains. So here's some of the nutrient facts. Einkorn contains a higher level of gluten, which is good for our eyes. It has a higher level of 2 different types of vitamin E, a higher protein count, crude fat, higher phosphorus, and potassium. It also has less phytic acid, which I always mess up that word, phytic acid, than modern wheat, which impairs the absorption of iron, zinc, and calcium and can promote mineral deficiencies. So modern flour has more lactic acid where einkorn has less, and that can keep our body from doing things that it was meant to do. All right. So these are some of those things that I just said to you. I thought that was a beautiful graphic, so I wanted to share it. And it also shows what the einkorn flour looks like. If you were going to purchase it, it comes in 2-pound boxes. So I had a fabulous video to show you, and we can't get it to work right. We could show it to you, but you couldn't hear it. So I would highly encourage you, when you get the document, you can see the click here button, to watch it. 2 minutes, 30 seconds. It will take you, you know, we talk about seed to seal a lot. It will show you the harvest practices and take you to the beautiful farm in France where einkorn is grown. And we just discovered right before we went on air that we couldn't show it. So I didn't take a lot of notes about the video, but one of the fascinating things, and they didn't share this in the video, is I don't know if this is why they started growing the einkorn. If any of my oily ladies know this, feel free. But they rotate it out with lavender, and it's really good for the soil. Now, I don't know if they started growing it by chance because it paired nicely with the lavender and the rotating of the soil, or that was an intentional part on Young Living looking to grow their einkorn, and they just kind of found that as a good way to rotate their crops. But it's absolutely fascinating when they talk about how they rotate the lavender and the einkorn, and they will also take you on harvesting the einkorn, and it is beautiful. So make sure you watch the video. All right, so einkorn, Young Living offers einkorn in its purest form. It's grown in France and in Utah. It is, again, that seed to seal, what makes Young Living. This einkorn is a great example of Young Living seed to seal story. So here are some of the different einkorn products. Since we are talking primarily about baking tonight, we're going to discuss the flour more, but I wanted you to see some of the other products that we have. The einkorn products are super popular, and they often do go out of stock. I don't think the waffle mix is permanently out of stock. I think it's temporarily out of stock. But don't hold me to that. So I think all of those products will come back in stock. And the one that I see that I forgot to put on there was the wolfberries, which I didn't realize until I was doing some additional research that that's the flour they use in the wolfberry crisp bars. And they are quite delicious and a pretty healthy snack. All right, so let's move. Oh, and I hear also, normally there are einkorn crackers in the holiday release. We should know that in a couple of weeks, but usually there's a holiday einkorn product as well. I can't guarantee that, but they've been super popular. Like, they sell out like crazy fast. So if you want those, make sure you order them right away. All right. So obviously there's going to be less gluten, so your flour is going to work a little bit differently. So I was going to say there's a bit of a learning curve with einkorn, but isn't there kind of a learning curve with wellness? Like, I was thinking about that, you know, as I cook primarily dairy-free. There's been a bit of a learning curve with that. When I redid my medicine cabinet, there's been a little bit of a learning curve with that, but the benefits always outweigh the curve. So I wanted it to be as easy for people as possible. No reason to reinvent the wheel. Young Living does have their own cookbook as well that incorporates a lot of einkorn recipes and a lot of essential oil recipes. So if you're looking to move that direction, that might be something you want to add to your next order. I'm not going to read through all of these for you. I know when you pull out your flour and you get ready to work with it, you'll have this there and you can, reference it then. But it looks to me like a lot of times it has to do with the liquid ratio, that you're really going to have to watch how much liquids that you use. And I'm just going to ask, and we'll just pause right here. Has anybody baked or cooked with the einkorn flour? Do we have anybody experience with that? Anybody want to order it and play around with it now? Like, aren't you curious? I know.
Well, I have it. I have
You
it.
have it?
Well, I have the berries, so I'd have to grind them myself.
Okay.
And I haven't done that yet, but I will
right.
for Christmas. I promise.
Well, you do have your holiday. You do have your holiday show coming up. No pressure. You've got about 4 weeks.
That's true. Yeah, in convention they had a whole section just for einkorn, and it was very interesting.
And I think they had some of the stuff that you could sample, right?
Oh yeah.
So yeah. I actually have my order coming, and I've ordered the granola and the cereal. And I was hoping I would at least like do a Vanna showing tonight, but it's still in shipping. It hasn't arrived yet. All right. So I incorporated, so I don't really know, like scones, are they a dessert? At my house, they're a breakfast item. I'm not really sure, but they looked good and they incorporated the einkorn, so they went on the presentation. I'm just gonna walk my way through the recipes. I'm gonna point out some of the oils that we use, but this is such a casual class. If you guys want to interject anything, just unmute yourself. If you've made it or you have any tips or you have any questions about the particular recipe, just unmute yourself and ask. All right, so these are all the scones. This is the einkorn flour. So this was a last minute addition. One of my friends posted this recipe today, and she posted, you'll see it in the top left, she posted the ingredients, and I was like, oh, wait, that's really cool, but I need some baking instructions. So I had to go separately find the baking instructions. So this is, again, einkorn flour, and this is going to be more on your healthy side. So we're going to have a very diverse dessert section tonight. We're going to have some decadent, and then we're going to have some healthy. And so this is vegan, trying to get something for everyone. And your oils are going to be cinnamon bark, nutmeg, ginger, and clove. And this was also an einkorn recipe. This is peachy keen cobbler. I love peach cobbler. It's one of my favorites. My aunt is an incredible baker, and that's what she would always make me for my birthday if I would request a dessert from her. So this one is cinnamon bark and lemon. And I am missing the comments, so I will get those at the end, or I'll let you guys get them for me at the end. So I figure you're just adding a lot to my discussion because I'm sure I'm missing some things. So I'm sure you guys are helping me out. All right. And I mean, obviously, if you like the crust on this, you're not limited to peaches. I mean, whatever kind of, I mean, if you like the crust, you could certainly, this time of year, all the fresh apples, wouldn't that be delicious? So, and later on, we've got some apples with some cinnamon chips. So you could take those apples and you could put them on this crust. So, you know, I think that's the thing that you just need to be comfortable with, is experimenting. And if it's not, and especially if you've got dietary needs, you guys are already used to doing this. But if you're like, well, I almost like that, but not quite, or I'd like it better if it had, this is just a starting point, you know, feel free to play around with it. Okay, so I almost had an epic fail, and my keen eye editor, Julie, did not catch me on this. I cannot believe she didn't catch me. So I had the beautiful graphic app that I'm scrolling through, and I'm like, oh, wait. I don't know how long they bake it for. There was a beautiful ingredient graphic, and there were no instructions. And so I couldn't find this recipe anywhere. And so Christy and I were messaging back and forth, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's just an individual brownie that needs to be baked in the oven. So if you're watching this live or recorded, there is nothing special about the people teaching. Anybody can do it. Yeah. I was like, I need to fix that. So this is also the einkorn flour. We'll talk more about brownies because I guess apparently I also have a chocolate thing. We have several brownies that made an appearance. You could totally add essential oils to this recipe. If it's an individual brownie, I would say you're maybe going to want 3 drops of orange, maybe 2 to 20 drops of peppermint if you're Christy. I would probably stick with the 2 drops of peppermint for an individual brownie. They're probably, you do, for an individual brownie, you do 5? Okay. Now, I would be curious if you guys have put any other flavors in your brownies, type that in or come off mute, because the only flavors I've done with chocolate are the peppermint and the orange. I mean, I guess you could do tangerine because it's very similar to orange, but.
So as you know, I did make my peppermint brownies this week, and yes, I put 14 drops in, but it was a regular brownie size. Come on, it wasn't individual. But yes, I do like mine extra pepperminty. I have also done cinnamon. I love cinnamon and chocolate. So some cinnamon bark in the brownies is really good too.
You know, you're right. There's a truffle recipe we're coming upon, and it has some of the more savory essential oils mixed in with it. So you could definitely take a nod from those truffles for your brownies as well. So it's always good, you know, it's a reminder, those white labels, those are the vitality oils. You automatically know they're safe for internal use. If you have another oil at home and it doesn't have a white label on it, it's the exact same oil. So if you want to use it in your cooking, you can. But sometimes when you're starting out, it's hard to figure out if that recipe says this much, how much oil does that equal? Remember, you can always add in more. You just can't take it out. So the oils are strong and overpowering. So just keep that in mind. And you can always use that toothpick swirl if it's a really strong oil. Most of with the desserts, you've got a little bit more flexibility because we're not talking about those deep savories like we are the oregano and basil, which can ruin a whole thing of spaghetti sauce if you use 20 drops of that. So, all right, so brownies. Yeah, I am I mean, I like my peach cobbler, but I also love chocolate. Okay, you don't get this size by not liking dessert. I'm just saying. I'm a work in progress. So this is your peppermint recipe. This is a 9 by 13. They're recommending 5 to 6 drops, but as Christy said, you could use 10, 7. I feel like we're bidding. Like for me, I would probably use the 5 to 6 drops, but I find peppermint to be pretty strong. But if you like them strong, go ahead. One of the other things that you would factor in too is this does have frosting in it. The frosting does not call for peppermint. You could do, you could do your peppermint in your frosting, or you could do your peppermint in your brownies, or you could do both. Again, that's where that experimenting is going to come into play. These are the orange brownies, and you will see in here that the brownies themselves do not have any orange in them, that your orange flavor is coming from the ganache topping. And 4 drops of orange oil might not be enough for some people. This was actually my personal recipe, and so I don't tend to go heavy on the flavors. I'm going to guess if Christy was making this, she would probably use about 8 drops of orange oil because she tends to go a little heavier on the essential oils. So these are those truffles that I was talking about. And if you haven't made truffles before, they seem like they might be like difficult, but they really aren't. I made these several years ago for a make and take that I was having. They were a treat we had at the make and take. And this also, I think, is the only recipe so far, unless I missed it earlier, that has the Young Living, the Yukon syrup. And that is not a product. Has anybody used that? Anybody? Nope. So it's not a product I'm familiar with. So if you're looking for a nod to your chocolate, this would be your cinnamon bark, your ginger, your clove, and your nutmeg. And you could totally do that in your brownies if you wanted to as well. Or if you wanted to do a brownie ganache, you could do that with your brownie ganache.
I have it. It's good. It's not super sweet, and it's almost like the thickness of a, where's my camera? It's almost like the thickness of a molasses. So it's not quite honey, and it's not quite, hey, my keyboard likes it now.
Oh no!
So it's kind of, it's hard to describe. It's good. It's not overly sweet.
So somewhere between maple, honey, and molasses.
Yeah. But it has that, definitely has that wolfberry taste.
All right, I'm giving you a challenge. I want you to try a drop in one of your teas.
I think I've done that, but I will do that tomorrow. Tomorrow for you.
Okay.
As I choke.
Now, I have not tried this one. Feel free to hop on and comment if you've tried a avocado healthy mousse. So this is a dark chocolate cinnamon mousse. And this again is pairing that cinnamon with the chocolate. But you're gonna get that whipped creaminess with your avocados. So if you're looking for that more healthy dessert, this might be a recipe that you want to try. I would love it if you try this dessert, you report back to me and let me know what you think. So this is a way to dehydrate your apples and make those homemade apple chips with you controlling all of the ingredients. And this is a recipe that uses the cinnamon bark vitality. I feel like we have used a lot of cinnamon bark vitality tonight. Like it's made an appearance in a lot of the recipes. And I think you could totally, this one talks about how you can dry them in the oven. It would be a perfect recipe if you had a dehydrator as well. So that might be something that Christy tries before her next class. I'm giving her all kinds of assignments tonight.
I have actually made these and they are fantastic. They're really good.
I wonder if they would pair nicely with the granola.
Oh yeah, totally. Absolutely.
So this is one of my favorites. This is one of my, so this was a Meller family creation. I was looking for something that I could play around with dairy-free that I could serve at a class I was having. So if you find a dairy-free white cake mix, then the recipe this way is made dairy-free. Now, again, if you want to use regular milk and you want to use a different kind of oil other than sunflower, you totally can. I mean, if you wanted to use butter in it, I mean, this with these particular ingredients make an incredibly light, delicious bundt cake. It's a perfect spring, summer cake. We like it with jade lemon, but because I was showcasing kit oils, I also made it with a citrus fresh. And it was very, very good with citrus fresh. And of course, it's good with orange or lemon as well. So I recommended 8 drops of jade lemon for the cake and 4 drops of jade lemon for the glaze. So, and jade lemon, if you're not familiar, has a very lemon limey taste. And everybody loves this cake. It's a huge, huge favorite. So, and super easy. Now, this is a no-bake cheesecake, and this is from, I was trying to get her name right. So you'll see her name at the bottom. Her name is Mary Mick, and if you're looking for somebody to follow on Facebook, she's an oily chef. So if you want more of these kind of recipes, you can totally just search her name and find her and follow her. And I think she has a new cookbook out as well. So this is a lime no-bake cheesecake, and it looks to me like, Andrea, you could make this one gluten-free. So to me, this is that perfect marrying of a little bit healthier, lighter dessert. You know, she gives you a few tweaks, so it's a little bit healthier, but you still got some of that decadence in it. One of the things I thought was super interesting about this recipe was that she used cinnamon bark in the crust. And it never occurred to me to use, I know, Christy, I can see your face. I can't see everybody's face when I'm talking, but I can see yours just now. And I thought, isn't that super interesting to use the cinnamon bark in your, you know, in your crumbs? So, and then she is using lime juice and lime oil. So 3 tablespoons of lime juice and 10 drops of lime. You're going to have a very lime cheesecake. I thought it sounded quite delicious. So there are your ingredients and your instructions. These were mine. So some of these were mine and some of them I've taken from other people. So this is a really interesting way to get some extra oil flavor. And it's oil infusing your chocolate chips. And then whatever you're making, and I don't think I put cinnamon on here. Nope. But you could totally use cinnamon as well to flavor your chocolate chips or your white chocolate chips. So again, you're only limited by your imagination. One of my customers actually created this recipe, so that's why it is Becky's pumpkin bread. And I thought it was interesting that she used orange in her pumpkin bread. So it's got the traditional nutmeg, cinnamon, and clove, but also a couple of drops of orange. And she said it was very, very delicious. I have not made this yet. We had this at one of my events, and it is delicious. If you want a shortcut to the cinnamon chips, I think we bought some cannoli chips that were cinnamon flavored. So if you don't want to make your cinnamon chips by hand, you could totally buy a cinnamon chip, but they're super easy to make. This is perfect for this time of year. All those fall apples just waiting to be picked and diced. So super, super easy to serve when you have, eventually we'll have people over again, right? Like, yeah, eventually we'll have people over again. But it's a lot, it's just a fun dish to make. And it is clove and cinnamon bark for your essential oils. And of course, you couldn't have a desserts class without the classic lemon bar. Now, this one has, see, I was looking to see, it doesn't look like we've used any regular lemon. So we've used 20 drops of lemon oil. This is not one that I've made. Our family is not a particular fan of lemon bars. And while I can eat a whole pan myself, the girl does not need to eat a whole pan of lemon bars herself. I wonder if you could use that cinnamon in the crust of your lemon bars. I bet that would be delicious. This is a lavender pound cake with lemon glaze. And again, full disclosure, I have not made this recipe. I personally am not a huge fan of the flavor lavender, but I'm here to give you options. So you may be like, I'm dying to try me a lavender pound cake, and here you go. They used, and they reference it in the bottom of the recipe, they use the little mini bundt cakes, which I did think would be really cute with your edible flowers. I was thinking they would be really cute for a tea party. But, and in this one is your, let's see, 10 drops of lemon and 6 drops of lavender. And you're on your own for figuring out where you buy edible lavender flowers. This girl does not know that. I live in rural Tennessee. I can't imagine having that conversation with anybody I live around. I don't know, Sandy, maybe you want to type in, Sandy lives down the road from me. Can you imagine going around trying to find edible lavender flowers? That would definitely be a trip to Knoxville. These are just some super quick tips. I had put this graphic together last week, and I thought sometimes we just forget to use our oils. For me, I've been, I use K-cups to make my coffee in the morning, and when I pop my hole in my coffee, now I've just been putting a drop of cinnamon bark down in my K-cup, and it makes a delicious cup of coffee in the morning. I would highly recommend that you keep some oils in the kitchen. You are going to be much more apt to use them if you keep them in the kitchen. If you have to go looking for them, you're just probably not going to use them.
Oh, the cardamom is one of my favorite oils to put in my tea. I use it almost every cup of tea I make. I absolutely love it.
Do you do a drop?
I use cardamom all the time in my baking, whether it's breads or pancakes or cookies. And cardamom has phenomenal benefits for your body as well. So I love to diffuse cardamom.
It is, we've talked about it a lot, and I need to put it on my order. I still don't have it. I know. When we have these conversations and I'm like, oh wait, I still don't have that.
You need to get a move on. It's time.
Yeah.
It's past time.
You'll love it. I've never thought to diffuse it. I'll have to try.
Oh, it's amazing diffused.
Incredible diffused.
I will
Do
try
a
that.
little research on cardamom and you'll be diffusing it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And obviously, you can take a nod from any of these recipes that we've talked about and put them in your diffuser and play with them in your diffuser the same way you would in your kitchen. If these all pair well in baking, they're all going to pair nicely in your diffuser as well. This was also a huge favorite at a class that I had. And one of the questions that came up with this is the pumpkin butter. You can find it more now than you can other times of the year, but I found it at Trader Joe's or the higher end grocery stores. And this is those same fall blends, cinnamon bark, ginger, and nutmeg, and then just a toothpick of clove oil. And again, you can serve it with, you could even serve it with the cinnamon chips that we talked about earlier. I mean, you're only limited by your imagination on what you want to serve it with. But, oh, your finger, a spoon? Yeah. I think this was one that there wasn't anything left of. I'm not quite as pumpkin spice crazy as some people are. I like it, but it's not necessarily like my favorite all time. Like, I wouldn't be like posting people would not be sending me all the pumpkin spice memes. But it is very good, especially if you're looking for a little bit lighter something. You want to set it in the middle of the table and you just kind of eat on it. It's very good. I would think you could probably, even if you're using something a little bit healthier, the apple slices would be really good with it. All right, so Isn't she just the cutest? So if your kids are like, what do you mean, no dessert? And you want to get a little bit of something healthy in them, if you click on that link when you get this, you will be able to find the Young Living recipe for the Ningxia Red jellies. I don't have little people, so I don't know if it's hard to get kids to drink Ningxia or not. I'm going to guess it probably depends on what age you start them out with. And if you start them out young, you probably don't have a hard time getting them to drink their Ningxia. But gummies are another way you can get them to take their Ningxia. And because Christy and I are teaching this next class, I get to plug it. So I love these girls. This reminds me so much of so many of my oil chats I've had with people. So next week is our off the record class. And it's the one you don't want to miss because we can't record it and we don't do any handouts because it is like a no holds barred, like to be completely honest, like we don't even know what's going to happen. Like we show up kind of with a plan and sometimes we follow it and sometimes we don't. So this class is also all about you. So if you have oil bottles you haven't opened, if you have stuff you want to talk about that we can't always talk about when we're recording, you can bring those stuff to that class and we can have more of a conversation around the stuff. And after, so I don't know why, but the last couple of times we haven't had very many people on this particular call. And we get off of it and we all are like, we're like messaging each other afterwards and we're like, oh my gosh, I feel so bad that people weren't on that call. It's like, yeah, it's so good. Like it's the class that we all learn from each other on. I mean, it would be the class that if we could, we would just all sit around the dining room table and talk oils and pass oils around and be like, hey, we just used blah, blah, blah for blah, blah, blah. So I would highly encourage.
It's like the secret society. It's like the girls' night in pajama party. No outsiders allowed. Like it's so fun.
Andrea just went to write down the title Secret Society. I saw her totally do that. And it's when you really get to see.
Yes.
Yes, we
when
do.
you get to see us at our best because like we all love each other. And we don't get to hang out with each other. We're not close in proximity. But I totally feel like this would be how we would hang out with each other at our houses. So it's by far my favorite class.
And it is an absolute zero judgment zone. You can ask whatever you want and we will talk about it.
Yep, absolutely. So I definitely wanted to plug that. The other thing I needed to tell you is that our webinars are switching to Wednesdays. I have to think about that. Wednesdays at 8. So all of the webinars in October will be on Wednesday. Julia's planning a fun kitchen hacks. She's kicking the toxins out of her kitchen and she's going to take us along. Young Living has their big holiday reveal. That's always a super, super exciting time for us. We can't ever wait to see what Young Living's releasing for the holidays. We'll be bringing that to you as well. And then Christy will be taking us into her kitchen for some holiday baking. So we've got a lot of fun webinars coming up. All right, so does anybody, let's see, so we need to stop screen sharing. I'm eventually going to get the hang of this, guys. I will eventually.